Swalwell on issuing a statement for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. My name is Van Jones. I'm a lead organizer in a community-based coalition called East Bay for Ceasefire Now. I consider District 14 to be my family's home. My grandmother was raised and lived most of her life in Hayward. My father was born and raised in Hayward. I was born and raised in Hayward before my family moved to Castro Valley, where we've lived for the last 19 years. Eric Swalwell has represented me since I was 13 years old. I've seen him around and met him multiple times throughout my life, both here at home as well as in Washington, D.C., where I've lived and worked. In addition to being a District 14 constituent, I am also a direct descendant of a living Holocaust survivor. My prababcha is 97 years old and lived as a teenager in Krakow when the World War II began, and eventually came to the United States as a displaced person. I grew up with stories of genocide, and it is abundantly clear that the indiscriminate bombing that has killed and injured tens of thousands of men, women, and children in Gaza is an attempt at ethnic cleansing, fueled by colonial desires. In American society, we look back at genocides across history, often wondering how people stood by and let them happen. We talk about the Native American genocide in our history books and we say, oh, what a horrible tragedy. If I were there, I would have never supported that. We look back at the Holocaust, and again, we understand the horror of it. We say, oh, what a massacre. If I were there, I would have never supported the Nazis. We don't have the luxury of hindsight to hide behind right now. We as a global community are currently living through a genocide. It's our time to decide if we're going to be the type of person in history that stands up and says enough. We as his constituency are looking towards Swalwell and losing hope that he will ever say enough is enough. So that is why I joined East Bay for Ceasefire Now. We are a wide network representing various stakeholders such as organizations, students, teachers, workers, business owners, families, faith leaders, and more. We are dedicated to putting pressure on our locally elected representatives to end the Palestinian genocide. That being said, we've been here before. We've held a march and a vigil. We've met with Congressman Swalwell multiple times. And we've had extensive letter writing and phone call campaigns to try to urge him to support a permanent ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, now. The first time we rallied here, 4 months ago, on November 9th, 9,000 innocent Palestinians had been killed. The second time we rallied here, on November 29th, 15,000 innocent Palestinians had been killed. Today we rally here carrying the weight of a death toll of 30,000 innocent people with dreams and lives and families just like our own, and that's just the known deaths. We still don't know how many people are trapped under the rubble. Each day that goes by without a ceasefire, the unimaginable toll of war continues to rise. Refugees are now cornered in Rafah, the city at the southernmost border of Gaza. There is nowhere left to go, and reports of a ground invasion are imminent. There are reports of children starving to death. Meanwhile, our government has cut all funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, the largest provider of humanitarian aid to Gaza. We urge everyone to pay close attention to Rafah. We have been absolutely devastated by this catastrophe playing out before our very eyes. We will not stand idly by or be rendered powerless by the inaction of our elected leaders. We demand accountability. And so we come together with the community to serve Representative Eric Swalwell a subpoena asking him to appear before our people's court. Back in December, Swalwell agreed to a town hall to hear from his constituents on the ongoing humanitarian crisis. This town hall was a sham. He took complete control. Yeah, boo! Boo! He took complete control, had all questions pre-submitted, and only allowed 4 constituents to read their questions out loud.
Shame.
Shame.
When pressed for his complicity in the genocide, he turned everything back around onto his constituents and claimed that they were being unempathetic of him.
Shame.
No, fuck that.
Congressman Swalwell has been criticized for his voting record, including his support of House Resolution 894, which equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism.
Boo!
Repeated votes for military aid and weapon sales to Israel.
Shame!
Shame.
And sponsorship of anti-boycott, divestment, sanctions, otherwise known as BDS, legislation.
Boo.
Swalwell has refused to acknowledge the genocidal nature of the conflict or the apartheid regime in Israel.
Shame.
Shame.
The unfolding Palestinian genocide has garnered significant public outcry, with over 60% of Americans and 3/4 of Democrats supporting a ceasefire. It is clear that Swalwell is failing to represent the majority opinion.
Shame.
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 So, we've decided to take back our power as a community. We're holding a people's tribunal against Representative Eric Swalwell, where we'll be charging him for complicity in genocide and failure to represent his constituency. We are demanding the most basic shred of humanity. A people's tribunal is a community-led court hearing. We are partnering with the National Lawyers Guild San Francisco Bay Area chapter, Jewish Voice for Peace Bay Area chapter, East Bay Families for Ceasefire, and a growing number of community members and organizations dedicated to letting Swalwell's constituency know how he's been behaving and what he's been doing. Today we are formally serving Swalwell a printed subpoena, which has been submitted digitally to his staff as well, and is currently being served to his DC staff right now, requesting that he attend the trial. We're requesting that he attend the trial and appear as a defendant before his community. Right now we're going to have Ahmed come forth and deliver our message and the subpoena to the office.
It's a long lunch.
Oh.
I'm just going to give this to you right here for Mallory, for Rep. Swalwell. I just want to make a second. So we are delivering this subpoena on behalf of State for Ceasefire Now, which is a community-based coalition with a wide network representing various stakeholders, such as organizations, students, teachers, workers, business owners, families, faith leaders, and more. They are dedicated to putting pressure on locally elected representatives to end the Palestinian genocide. We are here to serve Congressman Eric Swalwell with a subpoena, which I just gave you, which has also been delivered to his district office by email, formally requesting his appearance as a defendant in the People's Tribunal case. District 14 community members and partners be Representative Eric Swalwell. East Bay for Ceasefire is charging Rep. Swalwell for complicity in genocide and failure to represent his constituency. They are partnering with the National Lawyers Guild San Francisco Bay Area chapter, Jewish Voice for Peace Bay Area chapter, East Bay Families for Ceasefire, and a growing number of community members and organizations dedicated to holding Rep. Swalwell accountable and letting his constituency know how he's been behaving and what he's been doing. The People's Tribunal will take place on March 30th from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Castro Valley Library. His community looks forward to seeing him. So you can pass that message along. Please go to Mallory. Please send it to Rep. Swalwell as well. We'll do. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Very nice.
No, it's fine. Thank you. We thought the office was closed.
All right. Have a good day now.
Swalwell, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide!
Swalwell,
you can't hide!
We charge you with genocide.
Swalwell, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide!
Swalwell, you can't hide.
We charge you with genocide!
All right, so mark it on your calendars, everyone. Our People's Tribunal will take place March 30th. That is March 30th from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Castro Valley Library. Registration and updates on the tribunal can be found on our Instagram account, East Bay for Ceasefire Now. That is East Bay, the number 4, Ceasefire Now. We look forward to seeing you all in court. So now we're going to be hearing from one of our speakers. Her name is Sandra. She is a District 14 community member who has spoken extensively with Swalwell over the last 4 months. Take it away, Sandra. Hello?
Close to her mouth.
It is a virtue to have one's eye on the prize. In the case of Congressman Swalwell, his political aspirations have been made clear. However, when an elected leader can ignore the most elemental factors of human decency, when he is capable of looking away from people who are purposefully starved and then massacred as they scurry to get aid to feed their children, and in its place regurgitate the tired old Hasbara, which is the Zionist PR machine dictated by AIPAC, which serves a foreign country, in order to toe the line and stay in power, well, such a heartless person has no business being our representative. As stated, I have reached out to Congressman Swalwell numerous times. Years before October 7th, I had the opportunity to sit down with him for lunch and shared with him the horrendous injustice the Zionist state of Israel is committing against my people in Palestine. About the injustice that I, as an American-born citizen, experienced when visiting my ancestral land. The land to this day where my grandfather, 61 years after his death, is still revered as one of the most peaceful, humble, and meticulous farmers. A man who nurtured, loved, and was connected to his olive trees like they were his children. A man who was born long before the state of Israel was criminally created. And just last December, 3 months into this genocidal nightmare, I had the opportunity to address Congressman Swalwell in a virtual town hall meeting. I laid out more facts about the atrocities being committed and demanded he call for a ceasefire. But like most of our Zionist-controlled politicians, he deflected and patronized my pain, my horror, our absolute disgust with his position and support of this genocide. But no matter how many times I have reached out to Congressman Swalwell, his reply to me is the same. I am horrified, he tells me, by the atrocities committed by the terrorist organization Hamas. My wife Brittany and I visited Kibbutz Kfar Aza. As a father of 3 young children, it is unimaginable to think about what the families of these victims are experiencing. I grieve with them. America's top priority must be the immediate, safe return of all hostages held inside Gaza. It's important to inform you that Kibbutz Kfar Aza is a settlement just a mile or so east of the besieged Gaza Strip. It is built on stolen land that belongs to the refugees in Gaza. Honestly, the thought of my congressman fondly reminiscing on his visit to a settlement that is a stone's throw away from 2.3 million besieged, starved people is beyond nauseating. It's downright criminal.
Shame.
Nothing in his reply suggested that he has any compassion or concern for the millions of Palestinian people who have been under siege for the past 17 years in Gaza, or about the thousands of October 7ths committed against the Palestinians in the past century. For yes, Zionist terrorism began long before the UN partition of Palestine 75 years ago. First and foremost, his concern, his grief, is for the Israelis. Nothing, no concern or grief for the 30,000 killed, the tens of thousands orphaned, the millions starved, the wounded children with no surviving family. As a father of 3 young children, something is clearly wrong if he cannot show outrage, if he cannot call for an immediate ceasefire, if he cannot grieve for those poor babies in Gaza who are wounded, yet have no family members alive to care for them, no mother, no father, no brother, sister, aunt, uncle, or grandparent. Many are amputees, hungry and scared, alone in an unimaginable dystopian world. When Mr. Swalwell visited Kibbutz Kfar Aza, he may have arrived via the Ben Gurion airport. Ben Gurion was a Polish transplant who immigrated to Palestine and became the first prime minister of Israel in 1948. I quote him here. He said, "If I were an Arab leader, I would never sign an agreement with Israel. We have taken their country. There has been anti-Semitism, the Nazis, Hitler, Auschwitz, but was that their fault? They see but one thing. We have come and we have stolen their country. Why would they accept that? We are the aggressors," he continues, "and they are defending themselves. The country is theirs because they inhabit it." Even though Ben Gurion knew better, it did not stop him from his greedy criminal goals. Here's another quote from Ben Gurion. He said, "The present map of Palestine was drawn by the British mandate. The Jewish people have another map, which our youth and adults should strive to fulfill, from the Nile to the Euphrates." These quotes are readily available on the internet. I suggest our congressman read some history on the theft and the ethnic cleansing of Palestine.
That's right.
What more do we need to hear to know for our elected officials and all people who have been brainwashed by the Zionist PR machine occupying our media to see that Israel is nothing more than a colonial imperialist project? But truly, I've had enough. I have no more words for Congressman Swalwell. Words have been rendered meaningless. Congressman Swalwell's complicity, now culpability with this genocide, is attempting to render me, my people, all decent people, humanity meaningless. But we know better. We know that every accusation
twice now. I did not like it. When discussing October 7th and the Israeli hostages, Swalwell was uncompromising in his acknowledgement of their pain. When Sandra, who just spoke to you, tried to speak to him about her experience as a Palestinian American, watching friends lose their entire extended families, he refused to acknowledge the mere existence of Israeli aggressors. He made vague gestures towards wanting Israel to behave as it rooted out Hamas, completely ignoring the overtly genocidal rhetoric from within Israel itself, where you have the deputy Knesset speaker saying they want to, quote, erase Gaza from the face of the earth.
Shame.
And the Israeli heritage minister saying that there are, quote, no uninvolved civilians in the territory. Since Eric refused to admit any possibility of Israel having the intent to target civilians, a grim, ludicrous question that has been at the front of many of our minds was, where's the line? What number of innocent dead is acceptable before any of these people can consider Israel an actual aggressor? Here we are today having passed a death toll of 30,000 Palestinians. That is half of Castro Valley. And Democrats and Republicans appear to be in lockstep when it comes to lying to your face about what is happening. We have already had a U.S. judge concede that there are plausible accusations of genocide and that accusations that Biden and the U.S. government are aiding and abetting genocide. We've had the International Court of Justice rule against Israel in a suit brought by South Africa.
Yes.
But Swalwell and other elected officials want you to ignore all of that. I'm here to tell you, Eric, that people aren't falling for it anymore. People trust their eyes. The tide is turning, and people with my history, Jews with roots in Eastern Europe, we don't look kindly on collaborators. Ceasefire now, end the occupation, free Palestine.
Ceasefire now!
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
Well, you can't hide! We charge
You with genocide! Swalwell, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
Swalwell, you can't hide! We charge you
With genocide! Swalwell, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
Free Palestine!
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 All right, so the next speaker that we're going to have come up is Camilo Perez Bustillo, who is the child of immigrants from Colombia and parent of immigrants from Mexico. He is also an international human rights scholar and professor who currently serves as the executive director of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of the National Lawyers Guild. Everybody give it up for Camilo!
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay with the mask? Thank you. I want to express our unconditional solidarity with this initiative and with the ethical, political, and legal imperatives that it's grounded in. This is a people's tribunal, a tribunal of conscience, and similar tribunals are being convened or will be convened based on this extraordinary model, which is a historic step forward in community-based struggle that reflects these imperatives that transcend the limits of existing legal systems and state apparatuses of terror, like the governments of Israel, the U.S., and all of their allies. You will hear when we present the prosecution's case and the witnesses on March 30th. You will hear how this is grounded in the UN Genocide Convention, which was ratified, signed by, of all others, President Reagan in 1986, and ratified by the U.S. Senate in 1988 with a lead sponsor who was a then younger senator named Joseph Biden. He personally promoted the ratification of the Genocide Convention, never imagining that that would establish the basis for his legal, ethical, and political liability today. Our case will also be based on the proceedings that have been initiated at the International Court of Justice, the case brought by South Africa, and the broader case brought by over 52 states around the world regarding the illegality of the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. It's also based on the case that has been filed here in the Northern District of California that was heard in Oakland on January 26th by Judge White. The case brought by Defense for Children International and Al-Haq, among other organizations based in Gaza and in Palestine, filed by the Center for Constitutional Rights and supported by the National Lawyers Guild. In that case, the good news was that Judge White wrote and determined that there was, as the ICJ had found in the South Africa case, a plausible basis of alleging genocide in Gaza. A plausible basis, uncontroverted by any contrary testimony. But he also dismissed the case because he said it exceeded the limits of his power and the judicial branch in terms of controlling the unchecked discretion and terror of the executive. We beg to differ. We dissent. And we have been appealing that case, and so the People's Tribunal is part of that process. Just in conclusion, you can count on the National Lawyers Guild as part of the prosecution team, anything we can do, and to make sure that this process is replicated elsewhere. You can join us as we have been seeking to do by saying, we are here for the 30,000. We are here for the 13,000 children. We are here for all those yet uncounted under the rubble. We are here for the 2 million who've been terrorized and displaced. We are here for all Palestinians everywhere and all Arab and Muslim peoples in our communities and around the world. We are here for our neighbors, our sisters and brothers, and we will not rest because there is a duty that each of us have and that each member of Congress has and each member of the executive branch to enforce the ICJ ruling and to ensure that it is complied with. And we will not rest until that is brought to fruition. Thank you.
That was powerful. Oh, thank you, Camilo. We're now going to have some more chants led by Seema.
Swalwell, Swalwell, you can't hide.
You can't hide.
We charge you with genocide.
We charge you with genocide.
Not another nickel, not another dime.
Not another nickel, not another dime.
No more money for Israel's crimes.
No more money for Israel's crimes.
Not another nickel, not another dime.
Not another nickel, not another dime.
No more money for Israel's crimes.
No more money for Israel's crimes. Woo!
All right, so our last speaker is going to be Ahmed, another District 14 resident and a major contributor to our subpoena letter, who will be reading out our list of demands.
Woo!
Thanks, man. Thanks, Van. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. It's great to see everyone in solidarity for Gaza and for Palestine. So as you just saw, we just delivered a subpoena to Rep. Swalwell's district staff. And as part of that subpoena, we have a list of demands for Eric Swalwell. And those demands are, we need an immediate, unconditional ceasefire now. We demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza to halt the ongoing bombardment of and military incursion in Gaza to prevent further loss of innocent lives. The indiscriminate violence must cease, and efforts for peaceful dialogue and negotiations between conflicting parties should be prioritized. Secondly, release of hostages on both sides. Currently, there are over 6,000 Palestinians, including many children, indefinitely detained without charge or trial under the so-called administrative detention, held in conditions Amnesty International has described as torturous. This is precisely a form of hostage taking by the Israeli government. And for there to be truly a release of hostages, we must demand the release of all hostages, Palestinian and Israeli. But this in itself is not enough. We demand an end to the cruelty and the injustice of the Israeli justice system, which can only be achieved through an end to the occupation and concrete sovereignty of the Palestinian people. Additionally, we demand humanitarian aid and relief. It is imperative to ensure unhindered access to essential humanitarian aid, including food, medical supplies, electricity, water, and fuel, to alleviate the suffering of affected civilians. The blockade on Gaza must be lifted to allow for the unimpeded flow of humanitarian assistance. This includes the resumption of funding of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. They are the last lifeline for the Palestinians in Gaza. It is deeply shocking, indeed inhumane, that the U.S. and several governments have taken actions that will cause further suffering to 2 million Palestinians who are already facing a genocide and an engineered famine just days after the International Court of Justice ruled, concluding the survival of Palestinians in Gaza is at risk.
Shame!
Additionally, we demand divestment of military aid to Israel. The rationale to stop U.S. support for Israel is best summed up in the words of Josh Paul, who resigned from the Department of State after serving 11 years in the Bureau of Military Affairs. We cannot both be against occupation and for it. We cannot be both for freedom and against it. And we cannot be for a better world while contributing to one that is materially worse. And lastly, we demand an investigation and accountability. There is an urgent need for independent investigation into alleged violations of international humanitarian law and human rights abuses. Those responsible for any violations or crimes against humanity must be held accountable through transparent and fair processes. And those were the demands we listed out in our subpoena today. We've been pleading, calling Eric Swalwell's office, yet he has not responded to us and these demands. So the next step was to take it into our own hands and do this people's subpoena. Ceasefire now!
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
All right. So before we leave, we just want to tell you a little bit about our Art Build project, which is held right behind me by these two lovely gentlemen. It reads, "Birds dedicated to child martyrs of Gaza." On Super Bowl Sunday, members of East Bay for Ceasefire Now met at Cannery Park, where we held a potluck, testimony training, and a collaborative art build. Our art build project resulted in this banner, which depicts birds dedicated to the child martyrs of Gaza, And we will now have Seema read a list of the names of the children whose births they are dedicated to.
As we recite the names, hold them in your heart. Each of these are a beautiful child that has been slaughtered by a genocide of Israel.
Shame.
For each of these children, we remember you. Fad, Uday, Imad, Al-Ajaz.
We remember you.
Mahmoud, Ahmed, Fawzi, Al-Ghuti.
We remember you.
Ahmed, Saeed, Muhammad, Al-Talha.
We remember you.
Ayla, Ahmed, Abdul Qadir, Awad.
We remember you.
Amir, Atiya, Hadir, Isa.
We remember you.
Dalal, Ab, Alak, Awad.
We remember you.
Dima, Jihad, Hamid, Abu Umar.
We remember you.
Iman, Muhammad, Hussein, Al-Baqti.
We remember you.
Ita, Furad, Muhammad, Al-Araim.
We remember you.
Fadi, Ahmed, Ali, Al-Kashtan.
We remember you.
Jinnat, Hamza, Subhi, Al-Iljli.
We remember you.
Muhammad, Ahmed, Auda, Nasr.
We remember you.
Rizq, Salah, Fawaz, Abu Rizq.
We remember you.
Salim, Ahmed, Eid, Wafi.
We remember you.
Sham, Rami, Adnan, Al-Bana.
We remember you.
Subhi, Abdullah, Subhi, Hijazi.
We remember you.
Suhaib, Tariq, Mahmoud, Radwan.
We remember you.
Tolin, Muhammad, Fayaz, Al-Madhoon.
We remember you.
Yahya, Muhammad, Yahya, Jabr.
We remember you.
Yusuf, Abdullah, Mufid, Hijazi.
We remember you.
Aline, Jamal, Salmi, Ashtawi.
We remember you.
Bisan, Fuad, Usama, Eid.
We remember you.
Lamar, Sabir, Ali, Qadi.
We remember you.
Louis, Saeed, Khalid, Alwan.
We remember you.
Muhammad, Yasser, Ziyad, Khalifa.
We remember you.
Murad, Nidal, Rajab, Warsh, Agha.
We remember you.
Muhammad, Talat, Ali, Barhum.
We remember you.
Umar, Hani, Abdullah, Juma'.
We remember you.
Ratil, Jamal, Sulaiman, Abu Najah.
We remember you.
Wail, Ibrahim, Wail, Nabhan.
We remember you.
Wasim, Bilal, Fadi, Al-Majdaloy.
We remember you.
Abud, Yahya, Sami, Al-Jurani.
We remember you.
Anas, Marwan, Mahmoud, Hamad.
We remember you.
Mar'a, Muhammad, Wail, Nabhan.
We remember you.
Nisma, Qaid, Asar, Saba.
We remember you.
Tahir, Nidal, Tahir, Sharab.
We remember you.
Wasim, Wissam, Fatih, Aqal.
We remember you.
Yazin, Abdullah, Ibrahim, Judah.
We remember you.
Raghad, Farid, Abdullah, Ghanim.
We remember you.
All of these are children under the age of 13 years old. They are all children that deserved a chance at life. We remember all of you and we hold them in our hearts. Let's have a moment of silence for all the past children. All of these children can have a chance if there's a ceasefire now. We need an immediate and permanent ceasefire to give the remaining children in Palestine a chance to survive, a chance to live. They will have trauma no matter what, but at least they deserve a chance. Ceasefire now!
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Woo!
Thank you so much. That concludes our programming for today. And as we leave, I would just like us all to join in this chant. See you in court!
See you in court! See you in court! See you in court! See you in court! See you in court! See you in court, Swalwell! See you in court, Swalwell! See you in court, Swalwell!
See you in court!